My topic is counseling in organizations. Counseling in organizations, dear students, I would like to present some views on this topic. Counseling in organizations, or also it is referred to as organizational counseling. Nowadays it has been renamed as workplace counseling. That is counseling in action in organizational settings. That is the essence of organizational counseling. To be more precise, no two organizations look alike. Similarly, no individuals look alike. Every individual is unique in his own personality. Unlike that, every organization is having its own ecology, speciality, and if you wish, you can call it as personality also. So, according to one psychologist as well as a philosopher, he is Dr. Bateson. He says that context determines meaning. That is, meaning always will arise from the context. Context gives us meaning. That means that the environment that matters. So according to the environment, various strategies have to be evolved succinctly. Well, let us move on to the subject matter now. That is, two types of counseling techniques are available with reference to the organizational counseling. Methods, if you wish, you can call it also. That is, one method or one technique is popularly known as externally based counseling technique. What exactly it means? That is, popularly it is also referred to as, in Western countries, EAP. E stands for employee, A stands for assistance, and P means programs. Employee assistance programs. That is EAP. That is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this EAP? And let us see one by one now. And after seeing all those things, let us move on to internally based counseling technique. That is, with reference to the EAP or externally based counseling, the primary strength is, more or less, that is, these counseling services can maintain certain independence. That is, since they are being actually borrowed from outside, or else, if you wish, you can call it as they are being rented from outside, and that means that they are having their own portfolio of action, and they are having their own methodologies. They may not be that much influenced by the organization atmosphere. In that sense, exactly, they can maintain their own independence and identity and distinctness also. So that is the most important positive aspect, we can say. And then another important positive also, that is a strength or the strong point of this EAP is, that is, they can actually maintain confidentiality. That means employees may disclose fully well to those agencies because they are not at all connected with their work setting, and hence they are coming from outside. That is better. That is why actually they are capable of disclosing their own problems fully well to those people. So that is a second, probably the second important salient feature coming under the purview of strength. And the third possibility, or a third important feature also we can say, is it can be acting as a challenging one. This profession, especially counseling itself, is a challenging one, no doubt, but at the same time, as far as this external agency is concerned, since they are from outside, and but they are having their own methodology or orientation of action or actions concerned, so naturally they are having their own pattern of thinking, and they are having their own identity as well as their own sense of responsibility too. But at the same time, they can actually, there is a question the status quo of the existing organization also. We can question, actually, that is the most important feature here, just to try to understand it. That means that status quo of the organization concerned in which they are working may be questioned by those people. So in that sense, it is considered to be a challenging one. And one more important point to be pondered over is more or less, they combine, that is, these EAP programs always combine two important things. That is, one is training and the other one is counseling. That means during the course of providing counseling, they also train the personnel. In that sense, training as well as counseling, they both coincide and go hand in hand. So, and also in that sense, they can also, I mean, now we can say, they can provide different types of roles to the individuals, to the employees, to the organization. So those are the important, what we call that strong points or strengths pertaining to the EAP or externally based counseling programs or externally based counseling technique. And what about the weaknesses? That is, anything is having its own counterpoint also. So in that sense, certain inherent weaknesses also should be mentioned over here. The first and foremost inherent weakness in this particular EAP program is the rigidity on the part of the counselors. Since they are working from outside or coming from outside, they are being just, rented by the organization, and the organization actually need their or require their help. So in that sense, they are having their own rigid frames also. That is, these counselors in one way or other are having or maybe having certain rigid frames that may be one of the prime important weaknesses, we can say. And moreover, any organization for the matter is always profit oriented. So profit consideration, that is regarding profit consideration, remember, this profit consideration from the point of view of the EAP and the profit consideration from the point of view of the organization in which they are working may be clashing at times. This may be the weakness at times. And also, more or less, they may be influenced by the organizational settings, because the entirely new atmosphere they are facing. And in that sense, organizational politics, organizational ecology, organizational ethics, organizational norms, etc., may be having their own immense impact or influence upon the counselors who are working in the organization. Because already, since we know particularly, that is, they are from outside, that is why may be influenced well by the politics of the organization at times. That is why most of the times we can say these counselors may be viewed as aliens, that is, alien creatures. Since they are from outside, at times may be viewed as alien creatures. So those are the weaknesses and strong points as well as weaknesses we have seen, that is briefly. And let's move on to the next technique, that is what we call, that is internal or internally controlled or internally based counseling. This internally based counseling, it is self-explanatory rather, it is implicit, we can say, that is, since these people are always the part and parcel of the organization in which they are working, one among the employees, we can say. So this is the major point, and this is also one of the important salient features coming under the purview of the strengths. So since they are the one among the employees, so naturally they don't feel shy of others, and they don't feel that is how to get themselves adapted to the conditions. That is why they know pretty well the requirements of the organizations too. And that is why another important strong point of those people, of the services regarding, or that is, we can say, they are having or they may be having easy accessibility to various informal as well as formal structures. So formal structures means that is departments, maybe the sections, divisions, this and that. Assembly lines, they say, and this line, that sign, okay. So all those things, they say, that is those are the divisions, that's all. So that is why it is known as, that is formal structures. And what about the informal structures? That is the informal structure, most important informal structure is none other than, that is the trade union leaders and the trade union structures, that is the visible scenario of negotiations, this and that. So of all the features, they have to just take into consideration. So that is why we say that is they are having their easy accessibility to or towards those structures, that is formal as well as informal ones. And also they may be having, that is another important point, that is a strong point, we can say, that is they can enjoy good credibility. They can build credibility, the due course of giving counseling or extending counseling, definitely they can create credibility in the minds of the employees. So again, one more thing also we can say, they can easily adapt to the conditions. As I told you before, since they are capable of understanding, since they are capable of adapting themselves into the environment, understand, that is very important, that is they are having accessibility, not only accessibility, but they know pretty well the needs of the organization. So in that sense, that is, we can say more or less, that is these counselors who are working in the organization may be said to be having, that is very important, emphasis added, may be said to be having human face. This human face it is readily available before the employees, and that is why it is actually the counseling is in action, we can say. And what about the weaknesses? The points, number one is maybe more actually, since they are always within the setting, inside the environment where they are working or where they are supposed to work, naturally they may not be having more objective attitude towards the organization, may be influenced by the subjective component. So in that sense, actually they may be having various subjective attitudes. And at times, another possibility, another weakness also we can say, that is more or less they may be identifying themselves with some other structures, maybe with the formal structures prevailing in the organization, or else with some other informal structures. So in that perspective, most of the times they may be suspected by the employees as if they are the agent provocateurs, that is the agents of the management, and vice versa also at times. Supposing they are having affiliation, they are having their identification, psychological identification, that is consciously or unconsciously with the trade unions means, at times, or most of the times, why we can say, most of the times the management also may just look at those people as if they are the people of or the representatives of the trade unions. So in that sense, it is another important weakness to be understood. And that is why we can say, one more thing also can say, perhaps, that is, they may be manipulated by the management because they are being paid by the management, you know. So that is why naturally it is, actually it is possible also, it's not only probable, that is, it is possible also at times, that is why they may be exactly, that is, manipulated by the organization, by the topmost brass of the management. So in that sense, easily they can be manipulated at most of the times. And that is why it is more, that is an important thing, again emphasized, and that is, it is very, actually they are striving for, that is maintaining confidentiality, but most of the times this building of confidentiality may not be possible also. Whereas in the previous case, that is in the externally based counseling, we can say there is maintenance of confidentiality, confidence building, responsibility building, everything is possible, whereas here it is not that much possible. So that is the inherent weakness. So those are the strong points as well as certain weak parts regarding this externally based organizational counseling as well as internally based organizational counseling respectively. So far we have seen certain important features both of strength and weakness regarding the two different approaches of counseling in organizations. Now let us move on to the next important feature, that is value systems. Two different value systems always interact. It is precise that two different worldviews are actually acting, we can say. That is, the perspective of any organization, every industry, whatever it may be, is only how to make money. To be more simple, that is business. So business is the aim of the organization, okay. But at the same time, what about the aim, or what about the objective, what about the goal of the counseling? So counseling is nothing but, or aiming at, if you wish, to alleviate certain problems in the individual. That means liberating, literally put, liberating the individual from his woes or sorrows. But the thing is here, these two different things always at times may be clashing. That is inevitable, but at the same time, can they coexist? This is a ticklish question, tough indeed, but at the same time this question has to be squared or tackled. Let us take it up later, but now let me just introduce three important types of organizations. And according to these types, approaches of counseling also do differ naturally. Certain organizations nowadays, or some organizations we can say, or mostly that is, it is being practiced, it is in vogue, that is, they emphasize the teamwork in their employees. That is collective endeavor. So that is why the popular saying is human resource management or human resources management. Of course, this human resources management is meant for creating resources, material resources, no doubt. But we cannot just completely consider the material resources only, because of the human resources, you are creating, or due to human resources only, it is fit enough to just create material resources. That is why human element is most important than the material scenario per se as it is. But at the same time, what about the orientation of this teamwork? The teamwork, again, it is a self-explanatory. The term itself is self-explanatory, no doubt. Teamwork emphasizes the team spirit or collective endeavor, as I told you before. This collective endeavor, that means the collective endeavor means you are just supposed to organize the individuals. So that is their motto. So organizing the individuals for the benefit of the organization, to be more simple. But if you wish, you can just say that this organization is only possible because of the conglomeration of individuals. That is a collection or collectivity of individuals. But now, what about the psychological perspective? This is the organizational perspective. Well, but the psychological perspective is nothing but, that is, these different organizations, I mean that these individuals who are working in these different organizations must be having different personalities. That is very, very important, remember. So personality means everybody is unique. Every individual is unique. So these differences have to be brought together for the benefit of the organization. That is the very, very salient or important feature here. So for which, how to approach this actual question, how to tackle the problem, for which exactly various strategies are required. Independent strategies, different strategies, specific strategies, and unique strategies according to the conditions or conditionalities and the modus operandi of all those things have to be, and then and there has to be evolved. So that is with reference to teamwork. And some other organizations, mostly those organizations still are having or practicing certain feudal methodology or feudal type of management, are said to be emphasizing the passive approach. That is, they need always passive employees. That is, passive employees means they always require that the employees must be exactly told to do certain things, that's all. That is, simply they have to just obey the commands, so to say. So that means passive employees. This passive employees' attitude of the organization has to be understood by the psychologist. And don't go on criticizing the organizational atmosphere, but at the same time, without understanding the organizational atmosphere, if necessary, that organizational atmosphere also has to be changed. So that is why, as I told you before, at times the organizational counselor may go against the status quo of the organization also. It depends on the situation. That is very important here. So in that sense, if actually the condition warrants, the condition requires, means then you can evolve your own strategies. That is why no clear-cut strategy, no clear-cut formula, no ready-made mantra is available regarding how to approach the problems. And the third type of organization also we can say, that is what we call probably, that is growth-oriented employees. Certain organizations, they actually emphasize growth-oriented employees. Growth-oriented means, that is, they are always oriented towards growth. Growth of the organization, benefit of the organization, that is the suo moto or the goal of the entire organization, according to this perspective. But at the same time, this growth-orientedness or this growth-oriented employees may be having creativity. So creativity is the core of those employees. So creativity may clash with certain established norms also. It is unavoidable. So creativity, that is, creativity means spontaneity. This spontaneity cannot be gagged, cannot be throttled. So that is why at times, definitely in one way or other, these creative people may go on clashing with, not actually physical clashing it is, that is ideological clashing, that is ideological and ideas and value systems clashing, etc., may be possible. That is, they may go on clashing with certain macro managers. So that is, macro managers or the managers, one who are always operating from the authoritative style of functioning, that's all. That's why machine-like they are. That's why macro, that's machine-like. In that sense, actually we refer to them as macro managers. So these are the role conflicts, perhaps. So what about the psychological aspect here? that is the salt of psychology is, always remember, that is mind is in action, that's all. Because the individual is in action means whenever the individual is acting, his mind is supposed to be acting. So actually the individual has to be grasped from this angle in relation to the organization. That is why, just go back to Bateson, that is, context always determines meaning. So meaning arises out of context. Exactly the same thing also actually is working here. So that is why, remember, according to the patterns of approaches or patterns of organizations, we have to evolve the techniques of counseling also. That is why no foolproof method so far has been evolved with reference to this organizational counseling, or better, it's also referred to as, already I've introduced the term also, that is what we call, that is workplace counseling. Workplace that matters. According to the workplace, counseling has to be evolved. So that is all. So again, two value systems clash, as I told you. So these two value systems, in a sense, that is executives or the topmost echelons or the top brass, there is a CEOs and this and that, all those people are always fond of funding, budgeting, and organizational stability, regulatory functions, as well as certain external policies, external politics as well. So that is why their motto always is, because they are executives, that's all. They are planners, no doubt. But these planners are always actually in need of how to plan according to the situation. How to plan according to the situation means how to evolve strategies, better strategies, and these better strategies are meant for amass wealth. That is for the benefit of the organization. That's all. So that is their principle, no doubt about it. But what about another value system? That is value system of us. That is the counselors, the psychologists. So that is, clinicians are always concerned with the problems of the clients, and as well as, we can say, the available resources, available services. There is a tangibility of the resources, we can say. What are the tangibility of resources? That means at times, the managers won't furnish you certain details regarding the budgetary provisions meant for the counseling services. But there is no use in again and again go on arguing with them, because they are having that particular pattern of thinking, that's all. But at the same time, remember, there's the duty of the counselor is, that is the ethical component of the counselor is, you have to just make the managers to understand the veracity, the truth, the orientation, the need of counseling. So that is why exactly, that is, the counselor's task is always multifaceted one. It's a actually it is not only that is with reference to exclusively or centered around the individual alone, but the individual in association with the context. That is very important here. So the individual in relation to the environment, the individual in relation to the workplace, the individual in relation to the organization. So that is why no theory, no concept is said to be having superiority, and nothing is said to be inferior in this approach. So that is the thing concerned as well as so far the systems are concerned. And one more thing to be pondered over, to be mentioned at this time is, counseling always is aimed at, as I told you before, freedom of the individual. So freedom of the individual means from the problems the individual has to be liberated. That is the human essence. That is inward journey, we can say. So that is why even counseling itself actually has been termed by one of the founders of counseling techniques, Carl Rogers, as client-centered. Client-centered is, that is person-centered, that the person that matters, not the, that is a pure environment alone. Because the person interprets the environment, the person looks at the environment, the person perceives the environment, the person actually attributes meaning into the environment. That is why the person always that matters. So that is why client-centered one is always counseling. That is a human factor, human element, human essence, humanistic one. But whereas regarding the approach of the organization, nothing but is controlling of the employees. Controlling, not in the classical sense of the term, I'm just referring to it, but control is required. But here the perspective of the organization is control the employees for the benefit of the organization, means that is their orientation is The benefit means that is profit making, that's all. So that is why at times maybe they may just refer their employees to the counselors for rectification of them. So rectification means that is they may identify those individuals as if having problems. But from your point of view, that is from the perspective of the counselor, they may not be said to be having problems. But anyway, that is supposing you understand pretty well as a counselor, these individuals are not at all having problems, but viewed as by the organization as if they are having problems means, naturally your task at this juncture is make the organization aware of the actual situation of the problem, actual situation of the employees, and actual orientation to be adopted for the benefit of the employees. So that in that sense, definitely two value systems exactly at times may clash or seem to be clashing. Not at all clashing, but they seem to be clashing. Well, but can they coexist? As I just asked the same question, I'm just repeating it now. Can they coexist? That means benefit of the individual and benefit of the organization. Which comes first? Whether the individual or the organization. It's an idiotic question, no doubt. Whether the hen comes first or the egg comes first, like. So age-old controversy has been settled down. But the thing is, pretty well, we should know it, that is both must always be interacting. That is, without organization, the individual cannot sustain. And similarly, the organization always is possible only because of the individual's contributions. So that is why mutually, reciprocally, and very, very highly integrated both are. So that is why the integrative approach, what we call nowadays, that is integration of outer-oriented business, that means material-oriented business, as well as the inner-oriented humanistic values that have to be infused by the counselors. So in that sense, both are coordinated, both can coexist, both can go hand in hand for the benefit of the individual as well as the organization. That is the essence of organizational counseling par excellence. So as far as roles of the organizational counselors are concerned, naturally, from the beginning, we have been emphasizing that the orientation to be adopted from the point of view of the counselor with reference to the organization or organizations in which those counselors or counseling services are working may be different. But that is why, at the same time, for evolving those different strategies, the counselor who is working in an organization, said to be organization counselor, must be capable of understanding the details operating in the context. But at the same time, he must be aware of his own limitation too. That means he may be at times asked to perform various roles or different sorts of roles. So in order to just understand the significant aspect of the context in which he is working, he need not go on indulging in various activities. Don't mess up things. Remember, he's a counselor, that's all. He should not act as a manager, nor as a management consultant, or crisis manager, or HRD personnel, this and that. So in this perspective, the counselor always should be aware of his own boundaries. And one more thing, that is no clear-cut role is decisive, since he has to go on redefining his or her roles during action. So in that sense, no clear-cut role can be evolved and can be fixed. But remember, again and again, emphasis added, he should be acting only as a counselor, not anybody else. Here, various organizations or organizational activities have to be observed, as I told you before. Although he is observing those activities, he actually don't poke your nose, we can say, don't poke your nose into those activities. So actually the important roles are, most of the times, that is of the organizational counselor, that is preparing for the benefit of the employees regarding the retirement, preparation pertaining to the retirement, And similarly, there is organizational development, training, selection also we can say, and mental health perspective or mental health help supposing is required, and family counseling at times also may be required. So all those things he has to look into it. But at the same time, the role or roles of the organization should not be infringed upon by the counselor. So in that sense, again, so that is the roles, various roles he has to understand, but he should always perform the role of a counselor. The problems of the client must be understood not as a problem of the client alone. That is very important here. See, the problem of the client, that means the employee, is being referred to the counselor by the organization, let us assume, for various problem or problems. So to understand the problem of the client for which he is being referred to by the organization, by the department of the organization, or by the section or division of the organization means, that doesn't mean he has to look into the problem alone. Since the client or the employee is exactly within the context of the of the organization, exactly. So that is why, so within the context, he has to understand the problem or problems of the client. So that should be always the orientation of the counselor. Actually, what happens most of the time is, that is, the client is a replica of the organization. He is the mirror who is reflecting the organization. So through the client, he is looking at the organization. So that is why it's a sophisticated mediation, we can say. It's a sophisticated affair, it's a sophisticated mediation, and it's a balancing activity should be performed by the counselor. That means as and when it is required, he should not he should not avoid giving of prescriptions or certain directions to the organization as well. So in that sense, again, he is supposed to extend advice or counseling not only to the client concerned, but moreover to the organization also. So that is why organizational counselors should always balance these two different perspectives or these two different worlds or world points. And one more thing, that is that, as I told you, since the client always is taken as the mirror, one who is reflecting the organization, whatever reflection the mirror gives you must be understood as the reflection arising from the organization. But at the same time, this client always is more or less is said to be reflecting, is actually reflecting the organization. That is why the reflection is on the part of the client. Actually, that is, he is supposed to interpret those aspects arising from the organization. So that is why it is, perhaps it is a most important point to be remembered. That is, actually it is an interaction between the client and the organization. So from this angle, from this perspective, he has to just approach the viewpoint. So all organizations naturally have their own ecology. So ecology means, again, environment, that's all. Work culture they are having, work ethics, certain value systems, that an ethos, this and that. What we call that is a work culture also. And like that, we can just classify those organizations into 4 different categories. The first and foremost category is what we call that is a power culture. That is, power culture means those organizations are always fond of power. That means they need passive employees, that's all. They delegate certain duties, they delegate certain duties to the employees, and they actually, since they are occupying power, that is, whatever commands from the power arise will have to be obeyed. Dictum, that's all. That is a dictum. So from this angle, how to approach the employees and the problems of the employees as well. We have to evolve accordingly. There are certain strategies. And similarly, another set of culture also we can say, that is what we call role culture. Different roles they are playing. So those roles, that is hierarchy, that's all. That is, according to the hierarchies, they just delegate certain duties. And this particular hierarchical rung or rungs actually is the orientation, that's all. So according to these roles, or role culture, what we call. This role culture is having its own positive as well as negative aspects. Accordingly, we have to just evolve certain strategies to just understand the problems emerging in this context in the employees. So that is with reference to that what we call a role culture. And another culture also is possible, that is achievement culture. So achievement culture is nothing but they are always fond of achieving things, that's all. Their only goal is how to achieve things. In that sense, that is what we call, that is goal-oriented taskmasters, tough taskmasters, this and that they say. There is achievement, nothing but achievement. Supposing achievement is not possible means they simply fire the employees. So that is the achievement culture. So achievement culture, that is for the benefit of the organization, that is very important here. So for the benefit of the organization, they just emphasize achievement always. So from this vantage point, supposing the problems arise in this particular work culture means, naturally, specific organizational counseling techniques have to be evolved accordingly, no doubt. And another culture, which is probably known as support culture. So this support culture is highly commendable. Popularly, it is also known as nowadays synergic culture or synergy. That means one for all and all for one. It's a rare culture, no doubt. Support culture always nurtures in the employees the better component and creative component as well. That is why it is possible for the employees to just contribute a lot for the benefit of the organization also. So that means more or less this support culture nourishes the tendency of belongingness, the sense of responsibility and the sense of security also. So from this angle, how to approach the problems, even problems also may appear or occur in employees as well. So from this angle, how the counselor is just viewing at the situation, how he is evolving that strategies also is that matters. And we should keep it in our minds that counselors are should always be capable of evolving specific strategies according to specific conditions. So that is a challenging task, no doubt, and various roles they have to play. But at the same time, again and again, emphasis is added, that is where to draw a line of demarcation between their role as a counselor and others' roles. So that is most important, and that is why organizational counseling is a nascent field, upcoming one, and no doubt that is why most of the theories are always very loosely linked concepts, and no clear-cut theory is available and cannot be available also, because according to situations, the organizational atmosphere or the context, naturally problems always will differ, and no two organizations, that is very important, no two organizations look alike, like everybody is unique. So organization, everything beyond doubt, all the organizations are unique. According to the uniqueness of organizations, various strategies pertaining to, that is, problems arising within the individual is required. So that is the essence of organization counseling. So there is as I told you before, there is a sophisticated mediation, and this mediation is required. It is a need of the hour. It's a balancing activity that's a requirement of the organization as well as of the client also. So as a whole, we can say organizational counselors think interpersonally as well as organizationally, and they may be facing lots of challenges, like how to demarcate, when to demarcate, where to demarcate their roles as organization counselors, and when to indulge in or when to interfere in the roles of others for the benefit of the organization and for the benefit of the individual also. And similarly, that is regarding cost benefit analysis, they have to be very clear cut. And moreover, regarding not only roles, but regarding the maintenance of confidentiality, another important arena where he has to draw a clear-cut line. Because most of the times, maybe because that we can say that since they are being paid by the organizations, the organizational bosses may claim to disclose certain confidential reports pertaining to the problems of the client also, how to guard the secrecies, how to guard the confidentiality, and similarly, that is justifying the cost of supervision, avoiding the threat posed by failures, how to just encounter the envies of the co-workers, colleagues, how to make the colleagues aware of the situation, and how to cope with the changing scenario in the organization, and how to just, again we can say that is how to educate the entire network regarding counseling techniques to be extended by the counselor. So all those things beyond doubt play a vital role, and this is a ticklish and challenging task, but anyway he has to face reality for the benefit, again emphasis added as a closing remark I say, for the benefit of the organization as well as for the individual. So that is why it is both interpersonal as well as organizational. The client is a mirror, again as a recap I say, the client is a mirror, one who is reflecting the organization. So through the client he is looking the organization. So that is why both are interactive, integrative, reciprocal, and from this point only he has to approach the entire organization, and that is the task of the organization counseling and the organizational counselor. And how to manage this task, again another important significant component to be pondered over, to be grasped scientifically also. Try to grasp the essence of organizational counseling. It's an upcoming field, a very recent development in the Western countries. It's highly commendable. You can just use it in our Indian context also, because context gives meaning always. So from this angle, try to grasp the quintessence of organizational counseling always. Thank you.